You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, gang, welcome to Habs After Dark. My name is Devin. This is Recliner Sports, and we're coming to you from the Halley Tiki Room. What's up, Super Sheridan? 3-0 loss, Montreal Canadiens against the Minnesota Wild. Not a great performance by the team, in my view. I know that listening to the post-game show and listening to some of the commentary on social media, there's people who I think are happy to some degree about the performance in this game, and I don't quite see it. I think that there might be some positives to draw from the first period and the defensive game that they played in the first period. But overall, I don't think that there's much to be happy about that game. I think, I mean, maybe you can argue and say that they did a decent job of shutting down one of the better offensive teams in the league. But overall, I don't see much to be happy about in that game. A 3-0 loss and a game where they were dominated. Certainly, as far as the production side of things go, and keep in mind that Minnesota lost two of their better forwards in the first period. So they were playing with 10 forwards for most of that game and lost two guys who would have been in their top six forwards. So I'm not sure I'm as happy about that game as a lot of people are. Let's have a look at the scoreboard here and see what we think. We'll talk about this here. So we've got the first goal of the game. The first period is again, I think Montreal did a pretty decent job of holding their own in the first period with a team that is, I think substantially better than they are. Things were scoreless after the first period. Neither team was able to get on the board. It is what it is. I thought that, maybe Montreal played a little bit better as far as that side of the game was concerned. But again, I'm not taking a whole lot out of that. Let's look at the details of that first period. Shots on goal were 4-2. So neither team really showed up with a whole lot. The high danger scoring chances were 2-1. So again, not a whole lot there, but again, twice as many high danger chances in that first period for Minnesota compared to Montreal. And then on the expected goals, it was 0.4 to 0.1. So again, in all three of those categories, I mean, the numbers weren't high, but certainly they were dominant in favor of Minnesota. But again, I think Montreal did a good job of keeping, Minnesota off the board in that first period. We'll go from there. Second period, we have the first goal of the game midway through the period at 12:43. It's Boldy from Johansson and Kaprizov. It's a pretty goal. It's a nice goal. Let me see if I can just grab my notes here. I have some notes on it. Again, there's a turnover in the neutral zone. A bad pass from Dvorak to Hudson. He just basically rifles the puck, well behind Hudson. Hudson's not able to corral the puck. The play ends up going, turning over and going into the Montreal zone. Boldy comes across the blue line. He gets a shot on net. The shot is saved. Kaprizov gets the rebound. He goes around behind the net, and then he comes out in front and passes it beautifully onto the stick of Johansson, who's right at the top of the crease. But instead of firing the puck directly into Montembeault, he then just one-time passes it over to Boldy, and Boldy's got an empty net. Easy goal. It's 1-0 for the Wild. That's it for the second period as far as scoring is concerned. Again, high danger chances in that period, 0 for Montreal. Montreal doesn't get a single high danger scoring chance in that entire period. So despite the fact that Eriksson Ek and Zuccarello are both out of the game, that the Minnesota Wild are playing with just 10 forwards, the Canadiens are not able to get a single high danger scoring chance in that period. Meanwhile, Minnesota has 5. So again, a dominant period by the Minnesota Wild in that period. They outshoot the Canadiens 11-7, and they high danger scoring chances surprisingly were quite close at 0.6 to 0.5, but I think that had something to do with the power plays the Canadiens had in that period. Third period, again, the Minnesota Wild score a goal. It's this time it's Marco Rossi. Marco Rossi scores a goal from Spurgeon and Chisholm. It's on the power play. Again, it's another shot from the high slot. Again, a bit of a backbreaker for the Canadiens. They had killed all but 4 seconds of a 4-minute power play, but were unable to complete the job, and Rossi scores that goal. And again, it's a bit of a backbreaker for them. I think they might have had a chance of doing something if they had been able to get through that 4-minute power play. And again, an unfortunate penalty on Jayden Struble. Totally accidental. He ends up with his stick up in the face of Jarrett Spurgeon, and Spurgeon is bleeding all over the ice, and they have no choice but to give him a 4-minute penalty. And so that was pretty much it for the scoring. Of course, I guess one of the most embarrassing aspects of the game for the Canadiens was the empty net goal by Kaprizov with 20 seconds left. The puck ends up in the Montreal zone. Cole Caulfield gets completely outmuscled and outbattled by Frederick Gaudreau behind the net. Gaudreau passes the puck out in front to Kaprizov. Kaprizov has 3 Montreal Canadiens players on top of him, and he just outworks them, right? None of them seem to be all that interested in getting the puck away from him. He outworks them, and he ends up scoring the empty net goal to make it 3-0, and that's all she wrote. Again, that to me was an exemplification of what this team probably is lacking a little bit of right now. The confidence, the pride, the energy, all of that stuff that we need to see more from them, right? It's not so much about the skills anymore. It's about the performance that they put on when they go out on the ice, and that was not ideal. Third period, shots were 13-10 for Minnesota. The final 28-19. So Minnesota dominates the Canadiens in shots in that game. High danger scoring chances 4-1 in favor of Minnesota in the third period for a total of 11-2. So Minnesota has 11 high danger scoring chances. The Canadiens have just 2. Minnesota has more goals than the Canadiens have high danger scoring chances. And in the third period, Minnesota has 1.9 expected goals. Again, that's a high number, to just 0.7 for Montreal. The final is 2.9 to 1.3. It's just not good enough. It's not good enough. And again, the lack of any type of pushback that this team showed tonight was just disappointing to me. I know there's a lot of people who are talking about how this wasn't that bad a game, but again, you have to keep in mind the fact that Minnesota played 50 minutes of this game down 2 forwards, down 2 top 6 forwards. So this performance just wasn't good enough for me by Montreal. I wasn't a fan of this game. So let's move right to the report card. We'll do the A team last. The report card tonight is right here. There we have the report card. So I'm giving the team mostly X's here. I had given them some better marks, and I went back and I thought better of it, and I just wasn't able to. So 3 or fewer goals per game against. Obviously, they achieved that. They only allowed the 3 goals. They didn't score any, so they get an X as far as goals for. Special teams fail. They gave up a power play goal. I know it was at the very end of a of a 4-minute power play, but it's still a fail for me. I just don't see giving them a pass, and their power play did not look good tonight. Is it time to put Hudson on the first power play? I don't think so. I get why they're not putting him on that power play, PP1, but it just didn't look good tonight, I guess, if we can leave it at that. Engagement, effort, and energy, it was a no for me. I just didn't see it tonight. I thought there were a few guys that did, and we'll talk about that when we get to the A team, but, there weren't a lot of guys out there that really, you thought were like, going balls to the wall, right? I didn't really see it. Pride, same thing, right? Like, where was the pride tonight? There just was no. Again, that felt an awful lot like a, midweek game in November, right? Like a game that, it's in Minnesota. You're on the other side of the continent. It's just, I don't want to say they mailed it in. I don't think they mailed it in, but it just didn't look like there was a whole lot of real desire out there. When you get outchanced or high danger scoring chances 11-2 against, you're just not doing enough. So, what else do we have there? Discipline, again, the discipline was fine. There was just the one penalty. The 4-minute actually there was two penalties. Lane Hudson with, again, a horrendous call by the referees. I mean, the referees, again, you've heard me say it before, the referees are a disaster in this game. But Jaden Struble takes the 4-minute penalty. Again, it's, he's working hard. He's trying to make a play. I don't think I can really blame him for that. It's certainly not a lack of discipline. The Hudson situation is just a complete farce. Hartman, who is well known to be one of the dirtiest players in the entire league, sticks his knee out and tries to take out Hudson's leg. No penalty. Referees just completely ignore that. Then, about 10 seconds later, the puck is in the corner, and Hartman, basically rubs his elbow all the way through Hudson's face and is, grinding his, his face with his elbow and, whatever, roughing him up in the corner. And Hudson, to his credit, actually has the nerve to actually, push back. And the referees call him for the only penalty. I mean, again, it had no impact on the game whatsoever, but it's just another demonstration of the complete lack of intelligence, it's just sort of general intelligence when it comes to the game of hockey and understanding how to manage and referee and officiate a hockey game, right? Your goal as a referee is two parts, Ron. You're to keep the players safe, and you're to ensure that the game is fair by following the rules, right? You don't call a penalty when a guy sticks his leg out like that. That's not keeping the player safe. That's not you're not doing your job when you decide not to call that. That's you're failing at your job. And as far as the game being fair, it is what I mean. I don't know that there was anything unfair about that particular situation, other than the fact that it just demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of how to manage the game. So I see we have Entertap, Frank, NHL predictions. I forget what you told me your real name was. It was Aiden, maybe? NHL predictions. I apologize if I got that wrong. And Super Sheridan. I think Super Sheridan is new to the live. So I'm going to do one quick thing here that I forgot to do earlier. And if you just stand by with me for 1 second, we're going to just do this real quickly, because I want to do that. So if you're over on TikTok and you're watching us over on TikTok, come join us on YouTube and join the conversation and join us for Habs After Dark. I'm going to just go quickly through the A team, and then we'll get to the comments and see if you guys have any input, if there's anything you guys have to say about the game. Tonight, my A team was Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Montembeault, and Hudson. Hudson, I think you might make an argument he struggled a little bit on the defensive side of the game tonight. I think that's probably the case. But he did look very good. I mean, he was the only one who was really pushing the game on the offensive side of things. I don't think that any of the other, certainly any of the defensemen. I thought that Matheson did not look great again tonight. I thought he struggled. So can you guys, I don't know if are the comments working over there, guys? Frank and NHL predictions. I don't know if those comments are working. Typically, you guys have commented a couple times by now. I'm wondering if are you guys in agreement with the A team selections tonight? Are you happy with those choices? I thought that the Suzuki Slavkovsky Doc line was probably again the best line for the Canadiens tonight. Doc, I think, struggled a little bit, not as much as they're making it out to be on the RDS broadcast, but yeah, it's it is what it is. Montembeault, I thought Montembeault played well. The Canadiens got outchanced, outshot, and he kept them, close enough that they could have been in the game, throughout. Unfortunately, they weren't able to. They weren't able to get any offense going tonight. Not even any real, what did we say? 2 high danger scoring chances for the entire game. So, not something that they'll be real proud of. I don't know if I don't know that the comments, are they not working? Are you guys there? I see Frank and I see NHL predictions there. We'll go to the comments. Normally you guys have sent a few questions or comments by now, but you're being remarkably quiet, which leads me to believe that there might be something wrong with the comments. Is there an issue there, guys? What's going on? Oh, here we go. Sorry, that was my fault. Okay, there's tons of comments here. All right, let's get to it. Super Sheridan, is it time to start thinking Montreal is the worst team in the NHL? Well, they're not. You can think that if you want. They're just not. If you're over in the TikTok live, guys, come on over to YouTube, Recliner Sports 4 and YouTube. You see the instructions on the screen behind me. Come on over here if you want to join in with the conversation. Hello, Frank. The Wild are 10-2-2. I think they got good offense and good defense and a really strong goaltender. I think Montreal did pretty good and didn't get blown out of the water. Yeah. Again, we're on opposite sides, I guess. Usually it's the other way around, Frank. I don't agree. I think they did get blown out of the water tonight. 11 high-danger scoring chances against 2, to me, is getting blown out of the water, especially when you consider that Minnesota played the vast majority of that game without 2 of their top 6 forwards. So Montreal will never be the worst team in the NHL. They might perform, like it on some nights, but again, this is a work in progress, and it's not about, it's so hard to judge teams that way, right? Time to rethink Matheson and Doc on power play 1, maybe. Again, I'm not. The thing you have to keep in mind about why Lane Hudson is on power play 2 is that, right now they've got 2 viable power play units, right? So the other team can't just focus all of their penalty killers on one group, because if you put Hudson on power play 1, then the other team really only has to just stop the one power play. They don't really have to worry about the power play 2, and right now they do have to worry about 2 different power plays, which kind of spreads their penalty killers a little bit thinner. That's kind of why I think the power play had some success early in the season. We'll see. Yeah, I agree. NHL predictions. I think it's Aiden. I think you said Aiden, but if it's not, you'll tell me. They didn't. You're right. They didn't bring any of the momentum from that victory in Buffalo into tonight's game. I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any of the confidence or the the swagger or anything that might have come out of that 7-5 win. I didn't see any of that carry over to tonight. Well, I think the record is worse than the NHL. Caulfield, amazing shot. Well, the record isn't the only way you judge a team. Super Sheridan. Is there no chance the Canadian? No, there's zero chance the coach is on the hot seat. None whatsoever. And, if you understood what was going on with the rebuild in Montreal, I don't think you would even suggest that. For now, the record can change, but you never know. Again, the record isn't always the indication as to whether a team is good or not. Again, some teams are good now. Some teams are working towards being good. There's different ways of looking at good teams. Record-wise, yeah, they're not the best in the league right now, and you might be right. I don't know if their record's the worst or not right now, but I thought the overall defensive structure was actually good. Not many errors. Yeah, I think the defensive structure was good, which is why I think that was one of the positives that you would take out of this game, and which is why I gave them a passing grade as far as progress was concerned. I think there was some positive to be taken out of that. But if this team, if the lessons that this team is currently trying to learn and what Marty St. Louis is doing with this team is to try and teach them how to win and how to play the mental side of the game and the details. Tonight might not have been the best example of that. You don't have TSN or RDS. Well, you got to get one of the. Well, I mean, you got to get some way to watch the game. NHL predictions. Could I picture the calls and playoff comes on gonna be a nightmare? Could you picture the calls and playoff comes? I have no idea what that means, Frank. I'm sorry, man. Adrian, sorry, I was close, Adrian. I'm sorry. Matheson's still drawing over 28 minutes. Well, I don't know that they have a ton of options there. I do. Again, did he play 28 minutes tonight? Was that the fine? That's an awful lot if that's the case. I mean, he hasn't. If he played 28 minutes, I think that's the most he would have played all season. Matheson played tonight 28-19. Yeah. So what's his? That's more than his average. So his last 5 games, he had 28-19. Before that, he had 25-34, 24-09, 22-27, and 26-23. That was too much for him tonight. That's too much for him, honestly. I think that you're starting to see the effects of him playing so much hockey. I think you're starting to see the effects of the ice time that he's getting. Because, frankly, he hasn't looked that good in either of the last 2 games. Even in the 7-5 win against Buffalo, he was not good. And you're seeing him later in the game struggle. You think the Ducks take that? The Ducks aren't the worst team either. It's so hard to say that, right? Because the Ducks are working towards something. So when a team is working towards something, it's not necessarily fair, in my opinion, to judge them on their present performances, right? They're a young team. They're working towards something, Obviously, there's issues there, with their coaching and all that kind of stuff. There's stuff going on over there that's kind of, but yeah, it's different. What's up, Hunter? How are you? Maybe they were all tired from the game in Buffalo for a young team, you would imagine. Well, the game in Buffalo was 3 days ago, Frank. If they're tired from that, then they've got bigger problems, I would say. Hudson ice time is too high. I don't necessarily disagree with that. How many minutes did he have tonight? Hudson played. He only played 20 minutes tonight. So I would be happy if Hudson were sort of between 18 and 20 minutes. That would be sufficient for me. Brandon, hey man, I was watching a podcast and they were saying that Habs fans are upset and that St. Louis may be out sooner than later. Is this true? I thought the rebuild was on track. It's absolutely not true. That's not. I mean, there are some Canadiens fans who are upset, and some of the less knowledgeable Canadiens fans are calling for Marty St. Louis' head, but there's no chance that he's going anywhere. And I mean, I'm not sure what podcast it would have been. There's a lot of sort of non-Montreal based podcasts that just don't comprehend the rebuild and what's going on with the rebuild. So. I don't think that that's an issue, really. I think that the the management and the ownership of the team are fully on board with the rebuild, and they're fully prepared to, give Marty St. Louis, a long leash and an opportunity to, see the rebuild through. Can we get a basement tour? I can't, Wendell, not with my laptop. If you want to go to the Halley Tiki Room TikTok account, you can certainly check out some of it. But this is our tiki bar. Yes, it is. You've got a good eye. This is, I don't know if we call it a Hawaiian tribal bar, but it's a tiki bar, and you can definitely go check out some of the content at the Halley Tiki Room TikTok account, as well as Instagram. There's videos there if you want to check out a full tour of it. If you guys are over there on TikTok and you guys are commenting, unfortunately we're not doing any of the live on TikTok anymore. But if you do want to come over and join us on YouTube, come on over to Recliner Sports 4. You just come over here and you can join in on the conversation. You'll get to see the graphics and everything else we're talking about, and you'll be able to participate in the conversation in the comment section over here. Patrick Laine been skating at the CN Complex last Saturday, Monday. Yeah, he's been skating. Yeah, I think he started last Thursday. He started a week ago. Was the first day that they saw him on the ice. So yeah, I thought that was a positive sign. They're saying that if his recovery continues to go perfectly as planned, he may be available to play at the end of November. But again, that I think is only if everything goes perfectly, and we shall see. So Jack I could have also made your A team, no mistakes, solid coverage and 5 hits, I believe, good improvement. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Intertap. Yeah, it's a great call. Yeah, I think Jack I and Struble both looked quite good tonight. Jack I looks more comfortable, he looks more confident, he's making better reads. He's making the simple play. He's not trying to do anything too complicated out there, which I think is important for him. And I think he's looked solid for the last 3 or 4 games, right? There doesn't seem to be any question about Justin Barron coming back into the lineup or anything like that. Barron, it's unfortunate, but it doesn't look like Jack I is going anywhere right now. Now that could change. But again, if you're looking for positives and progress, I think that's definitely one of them. Yeah, they said that if our NHL Adrian, they said if everything goes well, he could return at the end of November. So that's I'm not gonna say that he should return by then, but he could return by then. When do you let the prospect goalies to come and play? Well, we don't really have any prospect goalies available to play right now. The only guy would be Dobesh, who is the goalie in Laval right now. And, in order for Dobesh to come up, you would have to send Primo down. And in order to send Primo down, he would have to clear waivers. Do I think he would clear waivers? I think probably. But if he didn't, then you'd be kind of screwed because you wouldn't have. The Canadians just don't have the goaltenders to do all of that. They would be scrambling to find another goaltender if Primo got picked up. And I don't think there would be any guarantee that Dobesh would be any better at this stage at the NHL level. So it's kind of a bit of a risky situation they're facing. As far as the other prospect goalies, they're just they're not at the NHL level yet, right? Jacob Fowler is still in the NCAA, and even if he were available, he's not ready, right? Goalies take a long time to develop, and he's not going to come straight out of the NCAA and go right to the NHL. It's just extraordinarily rare for that to happen. Mikas Vikvaneks isn't, he's still playing in the BCHL. Volokin is overplaying in Russia between the MHL or the VHL, I think, and the KHL. So none of these guys are available to come in. So I don't see there being any real changes at goaltender. I don't have any issue with Montembeault. I actually don't have any issue with Primo either, although I do think he has struggled for the most part, thus far in the season. maybe when Laine comes back, he will give the team a boost. You would hope so. Yeah, you would hope so. I mean, he would be, ideally, he would be a solid member of that second line and, allow your first line to sort of, put that first line back together. And, yeah, it brings some more, strength to your top six. I agree with that. So I was in Halifax once, had an actual bar in his basement. Passersby wanting to join. Do you invite the public in? I do, Wendell. If you wanted to come to the bar, we do occasionally have people come in, so you can learn more about the bar. Obviously, I've already told you about our social media stuff, but you can also the Hali Tiki Room does have a website. So I think it's halitikiroom.com, so you can check it out there. Yeah. There's talk that CBJ is not pleased with David Jiricek so far and would be convinced to trade him for the right price. What would Hughes have to give up, in your opinion? Well, again, I don't know why. I mean, I don't know. The answer is I don't know, Intertap. I don't know what they would have to give up to get him. I don't know, like, what would David Jiricek bring to Montreal that they don't already have, right? Obviously Jiricek is a great prospect, but Montreal already has a number of, high level defense prospects. So like you'd just be adding Jiricek. You'd either be adding Jiricek to the group of prospects, or you'd be exchanging, one of our prospects or one of the Canadiens prospects for, one of Columbus's prospects. So, are you prepared to give up on Reinbacher? Are you prepared to give up on Gouli? Are you prepared to give up on Mayu? Are you who are you prepared to give up on, right? If you could find a way to do it where you maybe give up like a Struble and or a Barron and a draft pick or something like that, then maybe. But again, I don't see what Jiricek would bring to the Montreal Canadiens that would be new. Who you got, Jake or Tyson? I am cheering for Mike Tyson, and honestly, I think that if he doesn't win, then it's probably because the result was predestined ahead of time, or predetermined ahead of time, I guess is the better way to say. Didn't they sign Hughes? Connor Hughes? Connor Hughes is the backup goalie in Laval. I think that might be who you're talking about, Asim. So again, the same thing. Like if Dobesh comes up and Primo goes down, okay, that's fine. But if Dobesh comes up and they send Primo down and he gets picked up on waivers, then Dobesh has to stay in the NHL, and then you've got Connor Hughes becomes your starter in Laval, and then you're calling up your goalie, one of your goalies from the East Coast League. Like this doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, could they pick up another goalie to play at the American Hockey League level? Yeah. Or at the East Coast level? Yeah. But again, I don't think that that's ideal, right? I think they have plans for Laval, right? They don't want Laval to just be a dumping ground. Like, they're using Laval as a place for their young players to develop. Their, Owen Becks, their Florian Jacki, Luke Tuck, Logan Mayu, Joshua Roy, like guys like that. Like, so, they don't want to sort of hamstring Laval by screwing up the goalie situation. Anyone know what is going on with Jack Campbell? He disappeared after leaving the Leafs as typical. Best decision Leafs ever made was not signing him. Well, he's been going through some mental health issues, Wendell. Where did he end up? He ended up in Edmonton, I think, wasn't it? Got sent down to the minors, and I think it came out recently that he's been dealing with some serious mental health issues. So again, I would be I'd lay off him a little bit, I guess. I'd say there's a chance could be claimed, Kapokakinen, again, I think a team might take a flyer on him, Brandon. I mean, like I said, he hasn't played. Primo, we're talking about, I guess. Primo hasn't played at any level, which would indicate that they want him, that anybody would really want him. But again, there's a lot of teams out there that could use a backup goalie or could take a flyer on a guy like Primo, who, frankly, it's possible he has the potential that he could be okay, like he could do something. I mean, I don't think that his performance so far this year is indicative of what he's capable of. So if you're over there on TikTok, guys, we're not doing any TikTok lives anymore, but if you want to come over and join us on YouTube, the instructions are on the screen behind me, or on that screen over there. Come on and join us over here. If you want to join the conversation, come over to YouTube. Recliner Sports 4 is the account. Come on over and join the conversation. Connor Hughes is a good goalie for Laval. Yeah, he was brought in from the Swiss Elite League last year, or the Swiss, whatever they're calling the Swiss League now. Isn't he an older goalie? I don't know how old he is. I don't know that he's older. I think he's like in his mid-20s, maybe. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you for sure how old he is. How did we play? Didn't really watch. I don't think that they played that well tonight, Habs Heaven. I wasn't impressed with it. I know that there's a lot of people, on RDS and some people on social media that I noticed that are, relatively happy about the game, but I'm not. I don't think they played that well. I thought they were dominated. They were outshot badly, outchanced, 11-2 on high danger scoring chances. Defensively, there's probably some positives to take out of the game. Their defensive zone coverage was pretty good. There were not as many, glaring mistakes as we've seen in the past. And that's probably coming around. So you can take, some positives out of that. But overall, I wouldn't have, a ton of positive things to say about the game. Yurchek is 6'4" and a right-handed defenseman. Okay. Give up on Slavkovsky. Okay. I'm not sure what that means. Why would you give up on Slavkovsky? That's, anyways, I don't know what you mean by that. Lost 3-0 against the Wild, correct. Frank, if we keep going like this, I think by the end of December the season is pretty well over, so enjoy what we can. That's the Frank I know. Yeah, I mean, if it keeps, if they keep losing games at the rate that they are right now, the chances of them, I think the chances of them being competitive for a playoff spot are already gone. But again, it's a rebuilding team, so you're not looking for wins and losses. You're looking for, signs of progress. And, are we seeing that on a night in and night out basis? No, we're not. But, again, that's what I think you should be looking for as opposed to wins and losses. Frank would be, are you seeing signs of progress and signs that, this team is starting to figure out the details that are being taught to them or trying to be taught to them by the coaching staff. Might cost you. Again, my only response to that intertap is I don't get what it brings to the Canadiens, right? He's an underachieving prospect from another organization, right? The Canadiens have, a glut, probably the wrong word, a number of young defense prospects already, right? Is Jiricek an attractive prospect? Sure, absolutely. But, so is David Reinbacher, and so is, Logan Mailloux, and so is, I guess, I don't know if you're considering Caden Gooley a prospect anymore, but, so is Jaden Street. Like, I don't know that he brings anything. Yeah, could he come over to Montreal and be a dominant defenseman? Yeah. I mean, he's, when he was drafted, that's what people thought he was going to be, but he hasn't been that. So, again, I don't know that, like, it, I don't know that if I were the Canadiens, I would be that keen on giving up one of your prospects for him. Like, who are you giving up on to bring him in? Campbell is with Detroit, yes. Well, I just think that he's he's got some mental health issues, Wendell, and playing in the NHL isn't always, especially as a goaltender, isn't always an easy thing to deal with when you're when you have issues of depression. And again, I don't want to diagnose the guy because I don't know, but when you're dealing with things like that, being a goaltender in the NHL is not the easiest thing in the world. I love Marty, and I'm not one to get mad at him, but putting him on the second line is atrocious. Who's him? Who's him, Habs Heaven? I don't know who you mean by him. Slav's not a bad player. He is young and Juraj Slafkovsky has been the best forward on the Montreal Canadiens for the last 6 games. What are we panicking about with Slafkovsky? Juraj Slafkovsky has 11 points in 14 games. He's on pace to far surpass his offensive totals from last year. Are we worried about him because he only has 1 goal? Is that the panic? Well, I don't think it's atrocious, Habs Heaven. I mean, it's not atrocious to put Caulfield on the second line. He's mixing up the lines, which I'm not a big fan of, honestly. I'm not a big fan of messing with your lines. Like if you're trying to teach your team consistency and you're trying to teach them the details and how to be winners and whatever, I think there's value in, keeping your lines together and letting them, grow that chemistry. And obviously, Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky has proven in the past that they're very capable of being, good offensive producers. But sometimes you got to mix things up a little bit. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it, but again, I don't see that putting Caulfield on the second line is particularly egregious. The Calgary pick is very interesting. If that moves to Florida pick, I would use that as a trade piece. Well, yeah, we'll see. It's the same thing as last year, right? They had that late first-round pick last year, and they used it to get Michael Hage. Michael Hage looks like he could be a pretty good prospect. So, yeah, I don't agree with that, Wendell. I think that when shit goes wrong, you start messing with the lines, more often than not, you just make things worse because all of a sudden you've got guys playing together who aren't accustomed to being together. And, I think sometimes when things start going to shit, I think you need to start falling back on the things that have worked in the past, right? You know that Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Caulfield works. But that's just I think that coaches feel compelled and feel like they have to make a change when things are going badly. Otherwise, people will question them, right? People will quite, why aren't you doing something about this? Why aren't you doing something there's this inherent or innate desire in the world of hockey, especially, to try and fix things all the time, right? You've got to do something to fix it, right? You've got to make a trade. You've got to fire a coach. You've got to send a guy down to the minors. You've got to mix up the lines. You've got, sometimes you just need to, have a chat about it and let it fix itself, right? Like I don't get why, when things go badly, I don't get why the response oftentimes is to break up the stuff that, has already worked, right? You're throwing out the baby with the bathwater sometimes. What's going on, James? The refs were a big impact on tonight's game. I don't know that they impacted the score. I don't think they were very good, James. I think they were terrible. I mean, that situation in the third period with Lane Hudson and Ryan Hartman. It was another demonstration of just how much the referees in the NHL don't get it. They just don't get it. Like, they don't understand the game. They don't understand the rules. They don't even understand what their job is. They don't understand their role. They don't understand what they're meant to do on the ice, right? Referees are there for two reasons. One, to ensure safety, and two, to ensure, application of the rules so that the game is fair. They're there to ensure the application of the rules so that the players are safe and that the game is fair. And the referees tonight in the third period just completely did not do that, right? They ignored a blatant knee-on-knee effort by Hartman, didn't call it, and then Hartman, roughs up Hudson in the corner. They ignore that, but then all of a sudden, Hudson decides, to his credit, to fight back a little bit, and they jump all over that and call that a penalty. It's just, horrible refereeing. Well, you typically notice when a team is down 2 goals in the third, coaches will change the lines heavily. Yeah, again, I don't understand why you do that, Wendell. Like, why would you? I mean, I get why you would do it. Like, so let's say, for example, you, like tonight, so Minnesota, right? They reunited Kaprizov and Boldy tonight because Eriksson Ek and Zuccarello both got hurt. So typically they split, like Boldy and Kaprizov are the two best forwards on Minnesota. And typically they try to split them up. Toronto's another example, right? Typically Toronto doesn't have Nylander, Marner, and Matthews together. They try and split them up. They try and break them up so that the other team has to defend against, more than just one line. You might put those guys, if you're down a goal with 10 minutes left in the game, you might put those guys back out together, because that they can work together. But the idea of like breaking up a line that was extraordinarily successful because you're down by a couple of goals in the third period or because you've lost a couple games just seems counterintuitive to me. Like you're breaking up the things that have worked for you, just because, I don't get it. It doesn't always make sense to me. St. Louis. I don't know what you mean. NHL predictions. If they're a superstar number 1 in this year's draft, the Canadiens are not going to get the first pick, Wendell. I mean, unless they're not going to finish in last place. It's not going to happen. St. Louis is not going to be fired anytime soon. Adrian. I would like to see them try to bring that rookie goaltender for a couple of games. We know nobody. Which rookie goaltender are you talking about, Frank? Again, I think you were here when we just talked about why they can't do that. If you're talking about bringing up Dobesh, and I think you're wrong. If you're convinced that nobody's going to grab Primo on waivers, I think you're wrong. I mean, I'm not saying that they will, but nobody is that. If anybody had any confidence that there was no way Primo would be, then they would think about it. But you're completely off base if you think that. I think that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton have a better feel for the waiver wire than certainly you do, and also than I do, I would say. I was at the Sabres game. One of the goals was Caulfield on Tage Thompson. The matchup is atrocious, and Marty needs to realize. I'll have to find the rest of that comment later. Montreal didn't play too bad, in my opinion, against the third. Yeah, again, I hear a lot of people saying that, James, and I just don't agree with it. I don't think they played well at all. I think they got dominated tonight. They got dominated by a team that lost 2 of their top 6 forwards in the first 10 minutes of the game. They were outchanced. High-danger scoring chances were 11-2 in favor of Minnesota tonight. That's not too bad. Now, do I think they did some positive things on the defensive side of the game? Yeah, I do. I think there's some positives to take out of that, but I mean, I can't agree that they didn't play too bad. I mean, obviously that's a much better team right now, but I'm not gonna. I'm the one who typically will defend them when everyone's jumping all over them because everyone thinks they played terribly. Tonight, it's kind of the opposite. I personally think that should have been a call on Gustafsson. Yeah. Or on the guy who pushed Slavkovsky into the goalie in the first place, right? Like, how does nobody get a penalty out of that? Again, didn't get that either. To add to my ref statement, I want to understand how when Caulfield, think, was shoved into the goalie. That was Slavkovsky, James, I believe. And then when he got shoved into the goalie, and then the goalie jumped on top of him, and then the referees just stood there and watched it. Montreal is in the third year of a rebuild, early into the third year of a rebuild. Correct. I agree with you, Asim. Again, it's going to be up and down. Like, progress doesn't happen like on a straight line. Sometimes you take a couple steps backwards. So, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm not sure what your main concern is about having Caulfield on the second line, Habs 7. Like, are you worried about size matchups? Are you worried about like what are like Tage Thompson is going to be on the ice against Cole Caulfield. Doesn't matter what line he's on. Sometimes they're going to play against one another. Caulfield, I think, has more than demonstrated that he can hold his own in the NHL. I mean, he's not going to be a physical force, but it's not very often that he gets, physically dominated on the ice. Just doesn't happen. That is correct. That is correct, Adrian. What's up, Nick? Nick. Which Nick? I'm not sure which Nick we're talking about. I know a few Nicks. I have a cousin named Nick. I have a neighbor named Nick. At what point do you want to see some actual success in terms of the standings? I mean, you want to see it. You want to see it all the time, Daniel. But if it's not there, then you're not devastated by it, right? You're not devastated by it. I'm not devastated by it, and Canadiens fans shouldn't be devastated by it. As long as you see that there's progress and there's hope there, and there's positive signs that things are going to get better, then I don't think that again, do I want to see them in first place in the in the division? Yeah, that would be awesome. But am I devastated that they're not? Well, no, because I watch the the post game. I listen to the coaches. I listen to interviews with management. I understand what they're doing. I understand what the plan is here, and I understand what they're working on. Are they gonna if they're still working on this in 8 years from now? That's gonna be a problem. But again, it's like I'm not judging this team at this stage based on wins and losses. Habs ain't making the playoffs for sure. I think that's probably an accurate statement, Daniel. I don't think you'd find a lot of people who would disagree with that. I don't know if you saw the goal, but Thompson basically just skated by him super easy. Well, I did see the goal, Habs 7, but you understand, you do know that Cole Caulfield's not a defenseman, right? And you do know that Cole Caulfield was playing back because one of the defensemen got caught pinching. And that, Tage Thompson, who's one of, I want to say he's one of the best, forwards in the NHL, but he's a highly skilled forward in the NHL, coming in one-on-one against a forward playing on defense, he's going to have an advantage. It had nothing to do with Caulfield's size, right? That's what happened. It had nothing to do with size. It had to do with the fact that Caulfield is a forward who was forced to play defense on a one-on-one situation. And, again, I think you're probably aware that Caulfield is a forward and not a defenseman. Habs need starting goalie. Sammy isn't a starter. I disagree, Daniel. I think you're wrong. Do you think Monty played bad tonight? I don't. I thought Montembeault played well tonight. Again, they were badly outshot. They were significantly outchanced, 11-2 and high danger scoring chances. And Montembeault basically kept them in the game, you know, and gave them an opportunity to win. They just didn't do it. Well, I think the answer, Daniel, is that as long as they're showing progress and as long as there's, a light at the end of the tunnel, then I think they'll be fine. And again, fans will get, most hockey fans aren't educated on the ins and outs of what's going on with their team. Like, they watch the game and they see what's going on the ice, but they'll grow impatient because they don't really understand what the rebuild is and what the intentions are behind it. But so yeah, I mean, that impatience will grow if they don't improve in the standings and whatever. But again, my sense is that management is perfectly willing to deal with all of that. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Frank. I mean, if Primo struggles in his next 3 or 4 starts, then they've got to figure something out. But again, I think they're a little bit in a tough situation as far as their organizational goalie situation, right? They're not going to do that until they have somebody in place either at the American League level or at the NHL level who can take that spot if for whatever reason Primo does get picked up on waivers, if he gets put on waivers, right? And also, like, what happens if Dobesh comes up and does no better than Primo? Then what do you do? People are comparing Demidov to Kaprizov. Yeah, I think some people are. I don't know that that's fair at this stage, but I think numbers-wise, as far as the numbers that Demidov is putting up in the KHL are comparable to the ones that Kaprizov put up at the same time of his career. Well, it didn't. I mean, it didn't. I mean, to me, it didn't. I mean, what part of that play? So I guess you could argue that Tage Thompson, a bigger defenseman, would have been able to, or a bigger player would have been able to force him and not allow him to cut back to the net. But if you were at the game, Habs Heaven, you'll know that he did the exact same play about 5 minutes later against, I want to see David Savard, who is a big defenseman. That's a Tage Thompson play. He does that against everybody, right? That play where he goes wide and it looks like he's going to have to go behind the net, and then he kind of cuts it in at the last second and brings it back in front of the net. That's a Tage Thompson move. He does that against everybody. So again, would a 6'5", 240-pound defenseman or a 6'4", like would Jack Eye have had more of a chance keeping him from getting to the net than Caulfield? Yeah, probably. But again, I don't think that it was. That's a Tage Thompson goal. I mean, you can go on YouTube and you can find a dozen goals from Tage Thompson scored that exact same way. Listen, guys, if you're over on TikTok trying to watch over there, come over and join us here. The instructions are on the screen behind me. We're over on YouTube. We're doing Habs After Dark. If you want to join the conversation, just come over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and jump into the comments and ask your questions over here. Tage Thompson is a big guy. It's not easy for the biggest D-man. Right. And, obviously, Cole Caulfield being stuck, covering for a defenseman who got caught pinching isn't going to be ideal against any skilled forward, to be honest. But it's not because of his size, and it's not because he's on the second line. I don't quite get where that came. Like, this seems to have come out of your argument that you don't think that Caulfield should be on the second line. I'm not sure I grasp how those things are connected to one another. Who do we have in the chat right now? We have Daniel, Habs Heaven, and James. And if anybody over there in TikTok, I see there's a bunch of people in the TikTok room. Again, we're not doing any of the conversation over on TikTok. If you want to get into the questions, you want to ask anything, come on over here onto YouTube and join the. We're doing Habs After Dark, guys. Once Laine gets back, would you say that will look better? More energetic. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know I don't want to put any expectations on Laine and his return, but obviously adding a player with the capabilities that Laine has is going to change your top six. Idiots on TikTok said Price is coming back next season, but he posted a video from 2018. Yeah, scared Habs fans that want the old roster back and don't give a shit on this. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by all that NHL predictions, but I agree. I mean, there are, like most fan bases, the majority of Canadiens fans don't really get what the team is doing. They don't get the intricacies and the nuance of hockey in general, right? I call them the 60%ers. They're the people who they watch all the games and they they won't miss a game, but they don't really understand what's going on the ice. Like they know that at the end of the game their team either won or lost, but they don't really get how it got there, right? It's the people who talk about, oh, this player didn't, show any effort tonight, or this player, it's these people that think that they have some sort of innate ability to judge a hockey team and hockey players based on what they see on the TV screen. And they don't really do anything more as far as being fans than that. Yeah. How many years did they sign Primo? You can look this up, Frank. It's easily looked up, man. Why don't you go online and look it up and you can tell me? Why don't you look it up and tell me how long he's signed for? I believe this is the last year of his contract, but I don't know. That's not how you spell his name either, by the way, Frank. But, I mean, it's certainly easier to spell it that way, I suppose. All right, gang. It looks like things are slowing down a little bit there. That's going to give me a good opportunity to end the show. It is 1 o'clock here in Nova Scotia, so it is probably time for me to start thinking about going to bed. I do appreciate everybody for coming by. That was a pretty good turnout. Great commentary, great questions. I thought we had a really good conversation about the game. The game itself, we have a 3-0 loss by the Montreal Canadiens tonight. They go down to the Minnesota Wild. Not a great performance in my view. They got dominated on the scoreboard. They got dominated in shots. They got dominated in high danger scoring chances. For some reason, they didn't really get dominated as far as expected goals are concerned, but they certainly didn't hold their own. I wasn't impressed with that game. I think there is some positives to take from it. I think that on the defensive side of the game, they showed some progress as far as their defensive zone coverage and their reads in their new system. I thought there was, a lot less sort of scrambly play in their own zone where, they, got caught in their own zone trying to get the puck out for, 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes at a time. Yeah, I thought in that sense they did take a bit of a step forward and they looked good in that sense. But otherwise, I don't think there was much there. There didn't appear to be a whole lot of fight in them tonight for me. There didn't seem to be a lot of pushback. Lane Hudson, one of the only guys who really, seemed to, want to fight back at all tonight. And I just, he's not the guy that needs to be doing that. So, yeah, it was a tough game. It was a tough game to watch for me. I know there's a lot of people who were saying that it wasn't that bad, but I think it was that bad. They need to be better. Again, like I said, when your goalie keeps you in it, you get opportunities to that you need to take advantage of. You need to, if you want to be a winning team and you want to show progress towards becoming a team that knows how to win, you got to start doing those kinds of things. So I really appreciate you all for coming by. If you are here in the live show, if you're watching the show live, Habs After Dark, then please, please, please go hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're a subscriber. Again, I know every YouTuber says this, but the analytics tell me that 35 to 40% of the people who watch the show are actually subscribers. That means that 60 to 65% of you are not. It really does help for you guys to subscribe. It does, we're relatively new here on YouTube. I think we're over 100 subscribers now. We're trying to build on that, so it would be really awesome if you would subscribe. Same thing if you're watching this on the replay, guys. If you're watching the replay, it's really easy. Just hit that button on the subscribe, that little subscribe button. Hit the bell. If you're enjoying the content, hit the like button, all that good stuff. That really, really helps us out, and it will help us grow our community here. We're going to start doing more than just the Habs After Dark show. We're going to start doing some, conversations about different topics in hockey. I want to do one about the new NCAA eligibility rule changes. I want to talk about that. I want to do a show about that where, we get you guys involved and into the conversation. But, regardless of what we do over here, the main goal is to try and get you guys engaged and try and involve you in the comments. I don't want to do a show where I'm the only one who's talking and I'm telling you stuff. I will do that to a certain extent, normally at the beginning of Habs After Dark and other shows, but eventually I want to turn it back to you guys and have a conversation and get your thoughts and have a chat with you guys about it. All right, Frank, same to you. So that's it for tonight, guys. Again, a 3-0 loss, Montreal Canadiens. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for keeping me company. Like I said, if you are watching in the replay, make sure that you subscribe. If you enjoy the content, hit the like button. For those of you that joined the live, thanks again, and we will see you in the next one. Peace out.
Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark.